of the day this Friday. Today, we have Ms. Ong Jillian, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer and Head of Corporate Communications of GAMUDA Berhad with us. Hi, Jillian. How are you?
Hi, Nada. Good afternoon. And thank God it's Friday. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Jillian. So, thank you for tuning in this afternoon. So Jillian is from GAMUDA, and we're going to be talking about a very special topic, which is Build Right for Life with GAMUDA. So before we actually get started on this topic, I would actually like to get to know Jillian a little bit more. So Jillian, so first of all, how are you today?
Surprisingly, I mean, it's supposed to be Friday. I used to tell all my friends in the morning, oh, thank God it's Friday, and you wind down. But I think lately, for whatever reasons, whether it's global warming or COVID or whatever, it never seemed to wind down. In fact, Friday seems to be picking up like crazy and Monday seems to be winding down.
Yep.
So it's been a very, very busy week for me. But yeah, anytime for graduate.
Thank you. And I hope this session will be quite enjoyable as you share a little bit more about yourself and your journey. So you hold two positions in GAMUDA, which is the Chief Sustainability Officer and also the Head of Corporate Communications. How do you actually juggle between the two tasks, on top of everything else that I'm sure you have,
Okay, maybe a little bit of myself. I've worked for nearly 20 years and I'm actually a communications graduate, studied in Perth in Australia. So for a comms grad to do sustainability, it's usual the question that I get, friends and people ask sustainability because climate science is always very technical. It's engineering. Most of the engineers will do it, environmental people. I think it all started when, in terms of reporting, because I do the annual report. I do a lot of writing, business writing, feature writing, creative writing. You can't run away from anything that's exciting about the company. You have to write. You're an in-house reporter. And as I wrote a lot on sustainability, at that time, the term was not coined as sustainability. You always have green designs, environmental protection, social protection, heritage, preservation, conservation, marine stuff like that. And as the world started packaging it as sustainability, and now it's known as ESG, and with COP26 and Greta, that's when it became part of work, because I have to write about it. I have to understand the topic. And as I was equipping myself to understand the topic, I did a master's in it last 2 years. And that's when I realized, it's actually a very interesting multi-dimensional area. I mean, in my line of work, whether you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, you're a communications person, you're a designer, there is something about sustainability that you can contribute to it. So I guess in that sense, I hold two portfolios now, the head of corporate com, as well as the chief sustainability role. So that's quite two big portfolios, and it actually is these two areas.
I see. Okay. Thank you. I also wanted to, can you hear me, Jillian? The line's a bit choppy.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a bit laggy.
Yeah. I wanted to say, so as you were, doing these writings and your research on sustainability, was that how you developed a passion for it? Or was it after your master's? Like, how did you decide to go into it? And when did the passion actually develop?
Okay, maybe I share a little bit from my own perspective. I get very excited, maybe because my dad is an engineer. I married an engineer, so I constantly go to sites. Whether it's my dad used to work in Intel, and my husband is a civil and structural engineer. So I go to manufacturing sites, and I've gone to construction sites, and it always it gives me in awe when I see an empty land, and suddenly in the next few years you see, wow, that's a big highway there, it's a big Penang bridge there, it's a big house there, you know. So when you go through the process, I usually call it a journey. And as a communicator, you need to know from step 0 all the way to the finishing line. And that's when you need to know the technicality. That's when I started learning the ropes and enjoying, oh, what makes 1+1? Because as an engineer, you can't lie so much. The building will fall down if you don't build it correctly. So yeah, it's 1+1 is 2.
Fact, but it's true.
Yes. So it's very technical, and that's where how maybe the arts people like myself come in to take the technical data, understand it, regurgitate it to a layman for the masses to understand.
Okay.
So I think that's how it's not because I did my studies, external studies on that, and then I went into sustainability. It was the other way around.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. Just now you mentioned that you've been in GAMUDA for over 10 years. So
yes.
Now we see a lot of graduates job hopping and things like that, right? So I just wanted to know, just from your experience, what's your favorite part about working in GAMUDA, and how do you personally actually stay motivated, throughout this time? And you still look highly motivated in your role. So what's the secret?
Well, I had other jobs. Like I've said, I've worked for close to 20 years. GAMUDA, fortunately, has been 3/4 of my career life. I previously had worked with an IT company, Lenovo. At that time, it was Lenovo and IBM. So I had a stint in the IT world itself. It was interesting, writing about servers and laptops, but never ran away from communications. I guess I get this question a lot. People ask, "Hey, Gillian, you're in one company for a very long time." I think is interesting to note that I was never in the same portfolio all the time, although I was doing communications. So, and GAMUDA is a huge diverse group. We have the property side itself. Just within the property, there's 13 developments across Malaysia and even in overseas. And even in the infrastructure sides, we have the water dam, we have the water treatment plants, we have the highways, and we have the MRTs and the railways. So I guess that got me motivated. And again, as a communicator, you need to know what's going on each project. So in my whole life of nearly 14 years in GAMUDA, I have met so many people, not even in the company, but external stakeholders, people from the residents, members of parliament, people who are not happy with the project, people who love the project, people like yourself. So I guess this keeps me going, and there's never a dull moment. And there's always crises as well.
Yeah, but it's really how you look at it, right? And you also find ways to motivate yourself as you go through the journey. Like you said, when there's a crisis, then you get really involved in it. How do we solve it? How do we manage it? And things like that. Okay. Well, it's really nice to get a little bit of an insight or your background. So for all of those listening in, I'm going to pass it over to Gillian to share some slides now. A little bit more on sustainability. So I'll see you in a bit.
Sure. All right. So maybe I'd like to share a little bit on sustainability and ESG. Maybe just treat it like a ESG 101 for those, and then we'll take on questions after this. I'm just waiting for my colleague to have the slide up. I think we're having some technical issues.
Maybe we can try again.
Okay, great. We can see the slides. I hope everyone can see the deck. We are now on the cover page. We'll probably go straight to, maybe we can start from the cover page. Well, maybe just to get everyone on the same page. If anyone is wondering why we have this vision, this tagline called Build Right, full stop for life. As builders, as construction, and as property developers, it is not really a vision per se, but it's an understanding and the way we build. Because when you do it right the first time, when you build a structure, be it an infrastructure or a house or a development, it stays on. That asset itself stays on for a good 100 years and more. So that's why we say is when you do it right, you're doing it for life. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think today's audience, most of y'all are in your early 20s, gearing all from graduation all the way to working life. So this should resonate very closely to most of you. Fast, can we go to slide 2 and maybe go on full screen? Can't see on full screen, Faslika.
Hang on, Gillian, because the full screen is just not coming up. This is it's not allowing me to go full screen.
Right. Then maybe we can just shrink it to the right a little bit and have the third screen, the right screen a bit bigger. Or unless, can most of y'all see the screen? If y'all can, I don't know. It feels like I'm speaking to myself. Thumbs up, or someone can say it's good to go.
Gillian, we can see the screen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, fantastic then. Okay, so today I will just spend the next 10 minutes very short, just going through what is sustainability and what it means to most people, and then connecting it to GAMUDA. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide, slide 3. So what is sustainability and ESG? So most people would say, is sustainability the new word? Is it a buzzword? I'd like to share just back in 2 years ago, the word sustainability probably doesn't resonate a lot with most people. If you were to flip the papers or even on your Facebook, on your feed, or on LinkedIn, or anything, there's very little hashtags on that. Basically, the word ESG doesn't even exist, at least for most Malaysians. And if you were to flip the papers on a daily basis, you won't even come across any articles on it, probably once in a year kind of thing. Today, if you were to flip the papers and you just scroll anything on your feed, the word sustainability is definitely on your face every day, and even the term ESG. So today, I'll just like to briefly brief what is sustainability and ESG. They're basically two sides of the same coin. If you can see on the left side of the quadrant where you see the 3 circles, it concerns people, which is yourself and myself as well. It concerns the planet, and that's why you have the 3P. We call it the triple bottom line: profit, people, and planet, the environment side. Now, in most technical terms, when it comes to reporting, you have the E and the S and the G. Basically, it stands for environmental, governance, and social. So environmental is quite straightforward. It's your trees, your environment, the greenhouse gas. You hear all this, the urban heat island effect, keeping the world anything not hotter than 1.5 degrees as well. Social is the things that you do, how does it impact generations, young generation like you're today who's attending this talk, as well as governance. How transparent are we spending the money? How do we manage this? No, so this is all encompassing for ESG. Okay, so we go for the next slide, slide 5. So here, most people will tend to relate sustainability to the greatest topic, which is plastic. We have seen a lot of articles about plastic, about throwing plastics in the sea, landfill, leaching on the water for the growing soil and everything. So this is what it means this is usually the topic when it comes to plastics, but there is more to sustainability than plastic. There's also the part about, you can see from the article here, you have the methane from cows, how we eat, how we lead our lifestyle, and everything is about sustainability. So this relates back to the previous slide about the 3P. So basically what I want to say is sustainability is a way of life. How you do business nowadays affects, it's between the financial and the non-financial. Whatever you build, whatever you sell, your product that you consume, your lifestyle, everything has a greater impact for generations. And this is why sustainability is all about, not just about making profits. It's definitely profit is important, but the non-profitable part itself, what it means to people generally. So next slide. So everyone is talking about ESG, and what is it and why should it matter to you? For very, very simple reasons. If you're young, you're in your 20s, the statistic shows that most people will generally live until 90 years old. You have a good long way of decades ahead of you. So basically, whatever my generation is doing now has a great impact to your generation and your generation, your following generation. So, the Gen Z and the millennials, this is why ESG matters to you. And this generation itself is viewed as very environmentally and socially aware. There's a lot of time we hear this, are you buying an organic product? Are you buying a product that doesn't use child labor? I guess you have probably read in a lot of news about not just child labor. Are you treating your laborers right up the supply chain? Are you buying things that is unethical source products itself? So it goes up and down the value chain. So which is why the whole world is concerned about this. This is beyond just your climate change, where you have probably heard about rising sea levels. Where certain cities in the world will be drowned, half of the city will be flooded by then. That our weather is going quite crazy. Winter is getting much colder than as usual. Summer is getting much more intense and hotter as well. Water, it's a huge problem for the world, getting fresh water. Pollution is one thing. So all this is everything. That's why it encompasses the E and the S and the G. So most of you are probably fans of Greta, the young, inspiring lady who went to COP26 and went and says, everyone is just talking nothing but blah, blah, blah. So just to give you a context of why ESG is such an important topic today. So next slide. I'm not sure how many of y'all, most of y'all probably know about Bill Gates, but I'm not sure how many of y'all are actually aware that there's a book on how to avoid a climate disaster. So based on this, we base a lot of our findings on this particular book, on this topic itself, right? Give me. Right. So some very pertinent key takeaways when it comes to the Bill Gates book. I will not go through it, but these are the few screenshots of it. We talk about the global average temperature rising along CO2. That is about the E part. If you can see on the right part. So what I want to say is it's all about climate science. And most of you, if you're not engineers, you're not in the technical, you might think, how does this relate to you? There is a lot of policy to be done at the national level, at our own level, even as an individual. There's a lot of personal life choices that we can make to move the needle. At the business, when you're working, how you design your work, how you do your accounting, how you travel to work, your personal choices of what you intend, what you want to eat for the day, the products that you buy, all this have a very long-term effect. And I think this is where, if you all can spend the time, the Bill Gates books touches about all this. And the key highlight is most of us think that, okay, we should use less plastics. We should do the 3R, reduce, reuse, recycle, even for water and plastics. But I think the most important thing that will move the needle for the world is actually looking into our electricity consumption. Whether we can increase the usage of renewable energy, and renewable energy is, be it whether it's solar, wind, or hydrogen, which everyone is talking now. This is where we are as a world and as in together, how we can really make the place our world a better place. So the next slide. So sustainability and ESG, it is actually a very shared responsibility and a necessity. Not one person can move the needle. We need everyone on the same boat. So I'll spend the next few minutes explaining. Slide 10, yep. So, and a case example in Malaysia, you have climate change impact on physical assets and infrastructure in Malaysia. I think most of us know that we are always having this problem. We have flash floods, and it's very, very pitiful, where a lot of not only property damage, a lot of people will lose their homes, they can't start their school on time, exams are stalled and stuff like that. And what does it mean for us? And it's not just an urban problem, even in the suburban area and outskirts, So we have seen the natural disasters that's happening around the world, not only just in Malaysia, is getting more prevalent, landslides, the rising sea levels. You see even the bleaching of the oceans, those diving sites that used to be nice, we don't see anymore. So just to give you some perspective of where we are, it's not all sad and dire, because we can make some changes for improvement. Okay, in the next slide. So ESG is the new and evolving way in terms of the workforce strategy. Now, we did a survey on the young generation. What will it take for a person? How important is ESG in deciding for the job or a company that they wish to work for? So very interestingly, 88% of the young generation say that they will find their job more fulfilling when they are given opportunities to make a positive impact on social and environmental issues. And this is where I want to share from the corporate, from GAMUDA's perspective. When we started our ESG journey, we had a lot of people who were not very aware what is ESG, what is sustainability. They wanted to know more, but what stood out among all this is there was no, I wouldn't say there was a little bit of ignorance, but there was great interest in this topic. Everybody had the intent to make a better place for themselves and for everyone. So there is definitely a positive impact. And as you can see, the next one, 83%, people will be more loyal to a company that helps them contribute to social and environmental issues. So basically, employees are no longer choosing a company just because, it's a better package. I think I will climb up the ladder in the next few years. I will get more money. They are also looking at what is the value of the company that stands for. Does the product of the company that they produce, is their manufacturing line, do they treat their labor force fairly? Do they take care of their employees? Or what is their gender policy when it comes to that? Do they give fair treatment to both genders? Do they give fair treatment to employees of different age, of different generations? So these are the things that as an employer have to look at it now. It didn't used to be that prevalent in the past, but it is starting to be. On the third point, another quite interesting one is that employees nowadays will consider working for a company that has social and environmental commitments when deciding where to work. And I think that's why if you were to just do a quick Google search on, most of the time now, most people's corporate website, they will have a sustainability tab. That didn't used to be the way about 5 to 6 years ago, but it is now, because everybody wants to know, what is your company, what is your corporation standing when it comes to climate action, what is your company pledging for, and whatever the company pledges, it is a trickle-down effect all the way down to the employees. Right. Second last point is that I found this a bit interesting personally for myself, that most employees would generally take a pay cut to work for a responsible company. Right. The last point is that will not take a job if a potential employer does not have strong ESG practices. I think this is very true. Speaking from personal experience, I have once gone for an interview and was once offered to a job where there was a great environmental impact to the society over there and to the water around that area. So if it's against your personal belief, against your DNA, I believe most people, back to the 3P process, planet, people, and profits, most of the time, most people have a conscience and not just work because of the profit, that P. They will think about the other two Ps, the people and the planet. Okay, the next slide, please. So there's a lot of be rethinking, redesigning, thanks to COVID. COVID-19 itself has been I wouldn't say a mind-blowing experience, but it is, being a COVID survivor myself, I was a Cat 3, Cat 4 patient. It does get companies as well as individuals to rethink about the way they run their business. I'll share an example. It's been very, very hard for most companies, especially in Asia, to have the flexi wellness work arrangement, working in an office and working from home. And there's a lot of processes that has to be digitalized. And it's also very hard, to get everyone is so used to using paper, physical signing. And we know paper, it's not very good. If you can do it online, you do it online. And many corporations have been pushing for this for years. And COVID has given us an opportunity to rethink, whether you call it by force or it's definitely not by choice. And the world has come to realize, hey, actually, productivity is not affected even when you are not working physically in the office. You're working from home. Trust is built. Now, this is in terms of the employee management side, but I think in ways, like in terms of houses, when it's being designed, as most of us spend time at work, you will see the trend has changed. Most people are spending more time at home. Therefore, most people end up renovating their houses to accommodate a small home office itself. More livability issues comes in. So COVID-19 has kind of really forced us as a company to be responsible. So if I can just bring it to your attention to that green box there, the 1, 2, 3, you can see here that the pandemic has exposed vulnerabilities in the working conditions. Number 2, businesses itself consider societal needs and ethical standards and no longer short-term profits. And thirdly, companies must have very robust governance. So I think, unfortunately, while COVID-19 has robbed us a lot of human lives, it has always a silver lining, and it does provide ample opportunities for innovation to set in. Right. Okay, the next slide. So why is ESG important in today's work? Okay, very important. It's not just so much about environmental and societal impact. Business is meant for profit. Basically, like Malaysians say, no money, no talk. You need money to sustain. Now, investors are making ESG and a very important thing when it comes to investment. Most of you are probably aware of BlackRock. BlackRock is one of the world's, if not the world's biggest investor. And they have made it a point that instead of just looking at the financial statements and the financial health of a company as a decisive decision on whether they should invest or invest more, I'm not just talking generally on investors, they also look into a company's ESG. So they look into, if you can see on the yellow box here, how they look into all these components to ensure that they reduce their investment risk. So these are the components that most investors will look into, right? Next slide. So today, companies from all sectors have no choice, but to ensure that their investments have sustainability roped into their business strategy. And this goes beyond just their ESG policies, So you have even Thomson Reuters here and MSCI and Bloomberg. These are the things that they look under for, which are environmental, social, and governance. Now, as fresh graduates, or for most of you who are still studying or entering the workforce, or probably in the early years in the workforce, I'd like to share a little bit why these indicators are important to you, because regardless of, again, whether you're an accountant, a lawyer, or a doctor, or an engineer, or a communication person, these are the usual areas that they look into: human capital, stakeholder opposition, political contributions, and even renewable energy. So if you look at this, all these definitely in your line of work or in your line of study, in whatever that you minor later on, you will definitely have some role and some involvement in some of this. Okay, the next slide. So at GAMUDA, we aim to be the leader when it comes to ESG in the construction sector. So I'll tell you our roadmap when it comes to that. So slide 16, next slide. A little bit about what is GAMUDA, just to give some background to it. We have been doing business since 1976. For those of y'all who are listening in from Klang Valley, you're probably very familiar. You probably may not realize, but the highways that you're traveling on, Sprint, the LDP, the Smart Tunnel, the Shah Alam Expressways. Okay, so these are the highways that we have built. We are in operations with townships as well, like Kota Kemuning, Bandar Botanic, Valencia, 25/7, and GAMUDA Cove. So we are into infrastructure as well as property. We have offices in Australia, in the Middle East, and Taiwan and Singapore, right? And even in the UK for property development. Next. So we have our roadmap with our pledge when it comes to climate action. It's called the GAMUDA Green Plan 2025. It's our roadmap for the next 5 years. Anchored on it are 4 pillars, as you can see. Basically, just to give you a summary, Pillar 1 is basically everything about design, circular construction, reducing greenhouse gas and stuff like that. Pillar 2 is all about our people, our communities are where we built. Pillar 3 is all about our biodiversity and environmental stewardship. Wherever we go, whatever we build, we make sure that we retain the natural environment and have plans to enhance it upon completion. So that's Pillar 3. One of our greatest commitment under Pillar 3 is to grow 1 million trees in the next 2 years. Pillar 4 is our whole digitalization arm, where we are into robotics. We have autonomous TBM and everything that we do in order to spur innovation. Right. So the next slide. Some financial year 2021 on the ESG highlights on what we have done well, just to give you a flavor and for understanding. So under the economic, we have won a few awards when it comes to excellence for our digitalization and of our IBS. IBS is our industrial building system as well. And because of digitalization, remember back to the 3Ps process. Most people would think if you were to embark on sustainability, you need to spend more money. Much the contrary, yes, you need a green premium for investment, but along the way, you do save money because you are making better efficiency and productivity. And therefore, you can see from the third point on the economic side, we have managed to save more than 300 million from sustainable e-procurement. So in terms of that, yes, you can see how with green investment, you are spending more, but in the long term, you're actually not only making the world a better place, you're actually saving and making better profits. In terms of environment, in the middle column here, most of you are familiar with those who are staying in Klang Valley. We have the MRT line 1 and going to the completion of the line 2 itself have won the 5-star sustainable infrastructure certification. That means the design of the MRT stations and the track works and everything is of a certain sustainable standard. That means basically it uses 2 indicators. It's supposed to use less water, less resources in terms of electricity. So all this goes a part and parcel of the design and the construction stage. So because of our intervention on and increasing our renewable energy dependence, just give you an example, because of solar panels at the clubhouses that we have managed to save 40% in savings of our annual electricity bill itself. So you can imagine if most of us in the country or around the world, you depend more on renewable energy. You can imagine the degree of savings in terms of that. I will not go through the rest. You can read it from the slides, but where I want to bring again to your attention is on the social part. We have a very interesting arm. We have this enabling academy. Now, and the enabling academy is something very special, very, very close to our heart. We are the only private company that provides employment transition programs to adults with autism. So we help them, we train them up to have that ecosystem both for the employer and the employee to be ready to work. So this is our enabling academy. And then itself, we have working with the Orang Asli and the indigenous communities also another areas is very close. So moving forward, we will be creating 200 employment opportunities at our wetlands arboretum. And this is all part of our 1 million tree initiative and program that we're going to do for the next 2 years. For those who are interested, I'm pretty much sure among all the audience today, most of y'all do a lot of charitable works and maybe never know you have your own social enterprise arm. Every year, we scout for valuable social enterprise and individuals who do goodwill back to society. And we do grants, matching grants, as well as incentive to make sure that this good work continues in Malaysia. So this is an annual thing that we run with the STAR, which we call it the STAR Golden Hearts Awards. Okay, next. So as an effort as broad and far-reaching as ESG within an organization, these are the whole benefits. So this might work regardless of what you're studying now, what you're going to major. This will just give you a broad overview. Later on, if you are in a finance department, you're in a communications, you're in contracts department, these are the roles and responsibilities as it is. Just to give you a flavor, right? Next. So some case studies that we have from individuals, departments, this again, I want to stress to you that says that regardless what you're studying or what you have majored, as you can see here, there's project management and approvals and everything. This is where, everyone has a role to play in it. Yeah. So I think this is the end of my slide. Is there anything else? I don't think so, Faslika.
Okay. Hi again. Hi, Gillian. Thanks so much for sharing and also Faistika for assisting with the slides. We've actually been receiving quite a number of questions, but before we get to that, I have some questions that I thought I could ask you, Gillian, that maybe you could help me out with. So you spoke a lot about sustainability and ESG, but I wanted to just pick on your brains a little bit about how sustainability is more than just saving the world from plastics, and what would it mean for the world or to Malaysians, especially the students or the young graduates listening in, for when they join the workforce? What are some things that they can actually get themselves involved in?
Okay, for those who are still studying, I'm not sure whether in your line of studying in your respective faculties and programs, if there is a component or a topic on sustainability, be it design or carbon accounting, climate science, policy making, social impact monitoring, I think these are the areas that it will give you a broad understanding for it. So go for all these minors if it works, because I will tell you when it comes to work, it will be applicable.
Thanks, Gillian. You were also sharing about how the different departments and workforce from various disciplines, actually, like whether architects or engineers or accountants, everyone has got a role to play when it comes to ESG, right? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because if I'm a graduate who accounting background, I won't be able to see the connection as I'm graduating right now. Maybe you could just provide the link, even like you were saying, you graduated in communications, right? How does someone actually find the connection to contribute into this section?
Okay, that's a good question, Anada. I'll give you an example. This is a practical example. For example, a company wishes to, their office itself, totally no solar panels, okay? And their monthly electricity bill, let's just say for argument's sake, it's 1,000 a month, okay? And they say, okay, and the company says, okay, let's look into ways where we not only save energy, we use less energy and be more efficient. So most people would think, this is the admin work, just and HR will send out a memo says, please off your lights during lunchtime if you're going out for lunch. Okay. Then the accountants will think, okay, this has nothing to do with me. I just make sure it's behavioral change. But however, let's go department by department. If you're an accountant, okay, let's go for the engineer first. So the engineer says, okay, you are spending 1,000 a month. We are paying TNB this bill. Is there a way we can reduce our consumption? So the engineer will look into, okay, best way is let's install solar panels to offset. Can we put it on the roof? And the designers will look at it. Oh, is the roof strong enough to withhold the solar panels? How many solar panels do we need to in order to save an X percentage from that 1,000 bill? And this is where they have to work it out with the accountants. The accountants will say, how much is your OPEX? How much is your CAPEX? And then moving along, how do we break even? Now, from the ones who are in a legal perspective, it's like those are things they will look into. Hey, can you just simply install your solar panels anywhere? Is this our land? Is this your land? Is this my thing? That comes to your sustainability and your rules and regulations. I'm just giving an example. You might not want to install something that is not your area, or maybe blocking a flight path, or maybe you have so little space. Even if you install a solar panel, your reduction is only 1%, let's just say. But if you can hit 50%. So everybody has a role to play in terms of that. And then in terms of communications, you need to ensure that the staff changes that behavioral change beyond just offing the light. So you need to do change management. You want people to know, if I one person off my lights, what if 10 people were to off their lights? How much savings do we go on that quantum? Because people want to know, if I'm just one person, it doesn't make, but if everyone offs their air cons on, and possibly maybe change the aircon to another more sustainable green aircon, is it worthwhile? And you'll be surprised, maybe from that 1,000 ringgit of your electricity bill, it can possibly go down by 30% or 20%, or maybe gradually as a phased approach.
Yeah.
So just giving an example of, let's just say, installing solar.
Yeah. That's interesting, because they don't think of it that way, right? As in, like, one small step can actually change and benefit you in so many different ways. I wanted to also ask you, like you were saying, how, when you did your master's in sustainability 2 years back, it wasn't the buzzword, but right now that's what everyone is talking about. So why does ESG matter so much in today's world suddenly? Within this 1-2 years, why is there so much talk? And why is GAMUDA putting such an emphasis on this in the way the business is run?
Why ESG has become such an important thing? It is because, for one very simple matter, while sustainability has been talked about for the last good 10-20 years, it is because investors are now applying a lot of pressure. Regulators are applying a lot of pressures. So I'll give an example. There are certain countries in the world that says, if you were to build a new factory somewhere, you have to ensure that you are on 50% renewable energy. You have to make sure that you have e-vehicles. If not, you don't get tax exemption. So these are all the levers. So it's usually a policy change. You have the carbon trading system as well. Yeah, so I think because of all these external forces, it is very hard, and you will see greater emphasis on sustainability targets for corporations to take on.
I see, that makes sense. Because now it affects, them as well, and their growth and dollars and cents, and people are then putting a lot more emphasis on it. I'm going to take a break from my questions, because there's been a lot of questions from the students. So I think it's best that I go to those right now. We actually have 2 people asking about, what challenges has GAMUDA actually faced in, becoming more sustainable and putting more emphasis on sustainability.
The challenges have been, of course, the first is the mindset change. It took us a year and a half to get everyone on board. As I said, everyone is eager. There is no setbacks in terms of that, but it is understanding the topic, understanding their role, how they're going to do their part. in making, let's just say, in reducing the greenhouse gas intensity by X percentage. So it is that part that is probably, I would say, one of the greatest challenges. Not a barrier, but something where I believe any corporation will have to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. So we also have a question from Effie. She was asking actually, how will the progress of, SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, actually be monitored, and what happens if they are not achieved?
Okay, the UN SDGs itself, I would say, is a very good global, not just a global marketing thing, but it's a very good tool for everyone. It gets everyone on a global platform of understanding the 17 goals. I think that got everybody at least quite compartmentalized. You have goal 1, goal 2, whether it's for gender, whether it's for partnerships, whether it's for smart cities. And most people, I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but most people will just see the title and they say, okay, I'm aligned to that. There is actually, if you go very strictly into their website, they have a whole long list of indicators down there for each of the goal. And I would like to suggest for those, whether you're a student or you're an employee or even a corporation is embarking on ESG, use those indicators of each of the goal as your base, as your action points, because that will give you an example. Now, for example, I'll give you a classic, I wouldn't say mistake or misunderstanding that most people have when they say that how they help poverty. Okay, giving greater accessibility to education and empowerment to employment. Most people would think that I just give you one of, I give you some donation and that's it. But if you actually study the indicators, it's a very sustainable long term. There's measurable and quantitative and qualitative measurements. They want to say, I give an example. If a person earns now, take home 1,000 ringgit thing, what are the ways that you're going to do as a corporation to ensure that the right training is given, the right job opportunities given, that makes the person maybe earn 2,000 in the next X years? You need to use that roadmap. So the UN SDGs itself, it's a good, at least to get everybody on the same platform of understanding, not so much on greenwashing and says, yes, I'm aligned to it, but how do you measure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
how do you ensure that what you're saying you're actually doing?
Walk the talk, right?
Yes, the walk the talk.
So Ida actually sent in a question, and she picked up about your, you mentioned something about people, profit, and planet, right? So there's a question that comes with it, where how do you then prioritize and balance well between people, profit, and planet? As sometimes, they do contradict each other. And how do you then evaluate the benefits and the risks involved?
I think this is where the impact reporting comes along. And sorry to burst the bubble for most people, there is never a balance. You can never seek and be an equal player and say all 3 Ps must have 35%. Everybody, happy. We don't live in a fairy tale world. But what I want to say is sustainability is a journey, and there will be a time where one of the Ps will override the other P. So I go back to that solar installation. I mean, something that's very easy to understand.
Yeah.
For you to install a solar panel, you need to have upfront capex. You need to invest, which actually you don't need to. Okay. But along the way, your monthly bills of the electricity, you will see the benefit, but definitely not immediately. It could be 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road, depending on your accounting, how you work it out. So at that time, if you look at the 3P, your profits in terms of the investments may not be so great, but to the people and to the planet in the long term, it's better. Then later you see your profits in your people. So I would say it's very hard to strike a balance, all 3, make all parties happy at the same time. No, it is a journey. Yep, I hope I answered that.
Yeah, we actually received another question about maintaining sustainability and profit, which I think is similar, where, like you said, sometimes there are fluctuations to that as well. It depends on the situation. We have a question which is asking about what is meant by green economy.
Sorry, I didn't get you. What economy?
Green economy.
Okay, green economy. So it's basically, well, green is of course your green energy, your green designs, anything green, basically greenhouse gas, anything that you produce or anything that you build, anything that you do, uh, whatever your baseline now is that you're producing your greenhouse gas. Maybe I'm going too technical, but that thing is supposed to be less, your intensity goes down.
Okay.
You emit less greenhouse gas. So that is more in a green economy, and how when you do a carbon accounting and your investments are actually for all this green stuff that makes the world a better place, and not investing in things that supposedly is not making a better world.
Let's see. Sounds like Captain Planet should be part here. I'm sure the graduates listening don't even know about Captain Planet. Is something that I actually
Not the
watched.
generation.
Oh, wrong one. Okay. But I think speaking about all of this has actually built some interest with the graduates listening in, and some are asking about what are some careers in sustainability and are they in demand? Like you were saying, there's some courses, whether it's your micro is in that, or your major or your minor. So it really depends on an individual whether they should take it up. But what are some careers that actually involve sustainability, and do you recommend to get into it?
Oh yes, I do recommend it. However, there is, in the last 5 years, when I placed an ad, there was not even such a job title as a sustainability manager. It just didn't exist, at least in Malaysia. Today, I think if you go to, like Job Street, or you just Google jobs for sustainability manager, you'll see quite a few. And to answer that question, is the job in demand? Yes, it is starting to be in demand. What it takes to be, let's just say, to enter sustainability, no hard and fast rule, because sustainability, I say, is a multi-dimensional, but most, I would say 50 to 70% of the jobs would require a person to have this following credentials. Maybe an environmental engineer, okay, someone who knows how to preserve the environment, a person who knows carbon accounting, that's two, a person who is into policy making, that's one. M&E engineers, yes, because it's on electricity, so that's in demand. Reporting disclosures. There's quite a few people who are in legal as well, who are accountants, because of integrated reporting is starting to be, the part when I mentioned, where companies are no longer looking, investors are not just seeing your P&L with your profit and losses, is thinking how much money you invest in the non-financial side. Yeah, so these are the things that currently the job market is looking at for the credentials.
I see. I wanted to ask, seeing how things are, and it's right now the big thing and everyone's into it. Where do you see the future of ESG going, actually?
I think the future of ESG is just going to get more intense. It's something that we can't run away. I mean, we have seen it, more and more people are talking about it. We see more young people like Greta. I'm sure there's going to be Greta 2 and Greta 3 moving along,
Yeah.
But she fights on environmental side. But you will see, even in our local community, there's a lot of people who fight for social rights. The women movement, fair pay, locals versus foreigners, labor rights, union. So this is the S part. And you see governance is becoming a big issue now on transparency. And that's why you have MACC, you have normal buzzwords, but things like corruption, stuff like that. So definitely the world of ESG will just get more intense. It's not going to reverse way. No, it's just going to escalate.
Okay. Well, it's definitely coming. We hear it a lot more nowadays, right? And thank you so much for your sharing. I actually have one final question before we close off the session. It's already been close to an hour, and it's been super interesting. I think a lot of graduates tuning in have asked a lot more questions about how to navigate their journey, whether they wanted to go into this career path and things like that. But as individuals, what are some tips that our viewers can actually follow to become more sustainable in their daily lives, not just at work, but just on a day-to-day basis? Like, what are some things we should think about to be more conscious of it?
I would say, as cliche as it sounds, read more. Start with the Bill Gates book. It is, most of this climate action science kind of books are quite boring. It's not your Jeffrey Archer kind of reading and stuff like that. But the Bill Gates book, he's able to make it very simple for people to understand and very actionable items according to the chapter. So start with the Bill Gates book, get it online or buy it from a bookshop. Start with that. And if you're a student, I'm sure whatever programs or faculties that you are, if there is a minor that you can go in it or some electives, sign up yourself for it. On a personal basis, on your daily life, always think twice when you buy something, especially electrical products. It's not just cheap, but look at the electricity consumption of that particular gadget that you're buying and how you dispose of your e-waste. It's very important.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that in some part of our lives, right? We get so excited when things come and then just dispose things without thinking about it much because someone will take care of it. But in the end, that's where, landfills fill up and it somehow bites us back. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much, Gillian and the whole team from GAMUDA. I think it's been a very informative session. A lot of people are a lot more in tune about this topic because and for also to deciding to talk about this topic. I think it's really noble and it's really nice to hear something like this for a change, and to know that GAMUDA as an employer is very conscious about its initiatives in this sector. So I really appreciate it, and on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, and we hope we can do this again soon. Do you have any last words to say to our audience, Gillian?
Can I just ask first from the audience here, are they generally more who are students or those who are working already?
You can drop it in the chat box, and then Gillian can actually have a look at it.
Because I'm actually very curious and intrigued the type of audience, and to see whether the type of messaging that goes out. Oh, Nada, it means I just look at the Q&A, is it? But there's no open questions.
Right? We actually have the chat box, so I'm
right.
looking for the students to actually come in. Let's see. Okay, final year. Okay.
And
final year again.
A final year. Okay, good. Would you all have any idea, inkling, whether they're mainly the arts grads or the science grads?
Okay, let's ask again. Arts or science? We actually have someone working as well, working in financial industries and involved in ESG community. So that's nice.
Right. Okay, so this is probably, I don't know whether to call it a tip or a final one. Remember, if you all could recall back the ESG, what E and S and G stands for. I'm going to leave the G part alone because that's most on ethics and conscience, which all of us should have. We all went and studied moral when we were in school. We've been brought up, so I'm going to leave that G part. But always think about the E and the S, the environmental part. And if I could help you guys to narrow it down, just look into your electricity and water consumption. Plastics is a given. What you do with your rubbish, I'm pretty much sure most of you have a recycle bin at your homes and your offices and your university. But think about electricity and your water. Unfortunately, water is so cheap in Malaysia. Most of us waste water and it rains, but it's a very sad thing. Only 3% of the water in the world is meant for consumption, which is very little. It's very less. So think about this, just these two, electricity and water. And in terms of social, always think about this as you're starting work. in your line of work, whatever you are next time, think about the social impact, whether, as cliche as it sounds, it says leaving a legacy. Your line of work, can you, in your policy making, in your day-to-day, can it make the place a cooler place? Yeah, so just these 3 areas, if I could narrow it down for everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Jillian. I think that helps a lot. So we're getting a lot of feedback from students. So it's a mix. We have a lot of arts, comms, economic, finance, business. We even have a chemical engineer, psychology. So I think everyone can benefit from this in, like you said, in their everyday lives, not to waste water, plastics, use that recycle bin. And also your electricity.
This is a special shout out for those who are doing political science.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, policy making, that is what they will move the needle. Because only at the national level, when it's top down, everybody says this, incentives and everything. So for all y'all who are intend to go into politics, go into parliament, want to do policies, changes and everything, yes, we need you people soon in the next 5-10 years.
There, you heard it for yourself. So policies are really, really important because that will create the structure for this to be developed further. So, but we are in good hands. We look forward to the youth to actually navigate this and take this on to make this an even, something part of our daily lives. But thank you for the wise words, Jillian. I think you've given us so much information on this topic, a lot of things that we didn't know we could do personally, or we took it too lightly. So I think we should put a bit more focus on it in our everyday lives. And I look forward to, having another session with you to maybe just check in again to see how we're all doing and see how we've actually learned and progressed it, putting it in our lives. So thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with me and with the whole, all the audience and all the graduates today. Really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure, Nada. And thank you, Graduan, and for everyone today who attending this talk.
Thank you again. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.